Let us master all the 34 agile terms which are referenced in the project management body of knowledge version 8. This will help all those who are preparing for PMP and CAPM exams. In the earlier version of PMBOK, or the project management body of knowledge, there was a clear demarcation between predictive and the agile. Whereas in the latest version, these agile terms and the predictive are intertwined. So there is no clear demarcation between agile and predictive. Everything is presented as in the hybrid format. That means the terms and terminologies or the best practices are all mixed up. So if you are new to agile, this video will give you the complete, or this will act as a checklist to see whether you have understood all the terms, agile terminologies fully or not. This is listed alphabetically. Now we'll start with the agile mindset because it a set of values, behaviors, and principles derived from the agile manifesto. And the manifesto reads like, we believe in individuals and interactions over processes and tools. We believe in working software over comprehensive documentation. We believe in customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and we believe in responding to change over following a plan. So in Agile, a lot of emphasis is given for customer orientation, uh, self-organizing teams, and continuous elimination of non-value adding steps involved in the delivery process. And we are okay with changes even late in the project. And then it is the backlog. The product backlog is the master list of features that may or may not get into the product. As and when the product owner identifies a feature, that feature gets into the product backlog. So product backlog can be considered as a master list of features, an ordered, dynamically updated list of all features, user stories, requirements, and enhancements needed for a product. So product backlog is the master list of requirements. Then backlog refinement or grooming. The product backlog gets optimized continuously. The features gets prioritized. It gets decomposed further. If you have a pix in the product backlog, it gets decomposed further. So the user story development, the refinement of it, everything happens continuously in a product backlog. We call it as grooming of the product backlog. Then in Agile, we use both burn down charts and burn up charts. If we apply earn value management in Agile, that is a clean example of a burn up charts. How much we are supposed to complete, and against that, how much did we complete? That is the essence of the S curve. So in Agile, if you use till this date, how many story points you were supposed to complete, and against that, how much did we complete? That is an example of a burn up chart. And what is widely used in Agile is the burn down chart. So we have the sprint burn down chart, release burn down chart, product burn down chart. So when we say burn down, it is the emphasis is always on the balance work to be completed. Whereas in earn value, it is all the emphasis is on how much did we complete against the plan. In burn down, our focus is how much more to complete. Then cadence A regular, predictable pattern or cycle of project activities and delivery iterations. So, cadence is a very important aspect of Agile. When we say 30-day sprint, that continues. Or if you're fixing the duration of the sprint at fortnightly, then that continues. Or if you say a stand-up meeting happens at 11 a.m. every day for 15 minutes at a particular place, that happens. So the cadence is important for gaining the velocity. A regular, predictable pattern or cycle of project activities that is known as cadence. Then continuous integration and continuous delivery, CI/CD. Uh, a good definition of done can be accomplished only through continuous integration of the code. That means at the end of the day, whatever is checked in as done by the programmer, we run a series of tests to see that everything is perfect before integrating that code into the main code. So we call it as continuous integration. So a test suite keeps running at the background at the end of every day to ensure the integrity of the check-ins from the first sprint till the current sprint. We call it as continuous integration. Continuous delivery. So if you are dealing with a product which demands continuous delivery to a customer, for example, an Amazon website, new features cannot wait, new updates cannot wait. It must happen on a daily basis. So we call that as a continuous delivery. So continuous integration and continuous delivery goes hand in hand. Cycle time is the elapsed time measured from when the work on a task actually begins until it is completed. So somebody picks up a task from to be done and moves it to being done. From that time till the release of that particular, till the completion of it, we call it as the elapsed time in Agile. Daily stand up, it is a brief, typically 15-minute daily synchronization event. We call it as a daily stand up meeting or a daily scrum, which is an integral part of almost all Agile framework, including Scrum. Then definition of done, this is very critical in Agile. Everybody should understand the definition of done in the same way. A good definition of done means it is ready for shipping. That means nobody will work on it again. Whatever may be the definition of done, the entire team should have a common understanding of definition of done. That is very important. Then definition of ready, that is definition of done, the short form is DOD, and the definition of ready, the short form is DOR. A collaborative checklist of prerequisites a backlog item must satisfy before it can be pulled into an iteration or sprint. That means in the product backlog, as we discussed earlier, the it's all is a wish list of features that may or may not get into the product. Maybe before starting the development, we may have to do the technical feasibility and the commercial feasibility. And if everything is fine, then only we push it into the sprint. So is it ready? That is what is the definition of ready? Maybe a user story must be available, it must be reviewed, it must be approved by the team or the stakeholders, technical feasibility done, commercial feasibility done. That can be a good definition of ready. So having a definition of ready and having a definition of done is very important in Agile. Then epic. Epics are very large user stories, large stories which cannot be estimated. This must be decomposed further into smaller stories. Only then we can estimate them. So epic is a large body of work or overarching user requirement that can be broken down into smaller workable user stories over multiple iterations. A feature is a distinct functionality or capability of a product that delivers tangible business value to the end user. So it goes like this. Epic can be broken down into user stories, and the stories are connected with features, maybe multiple uh, stories contribute to a feature. Then information radiator. Uh, any any artifact which radiates the project information to the rest of the team can be considered as an information radiator. For example, a Kanban board, which tells us very clearly, like to be done, being done, done status continuously, is an example of information radiator. Then iterations in Scrum, we call it as sprints, a fixed time box, commonly 1 to 4 weeks. So maximum is 4 weeks, during which a team develops, tests, and delivers a functional increment of work. So maximum 30 days. Sometimes teams run with 5 day sprints or 10-day sprints or 15-day sprints. Maximum 30 days. But once we decide on a 10-day sprint, then consistently we should follow that 10-day cadence for sprints. But maybe after a series of 10-day sprints, if you want to revise it into 30-day sprints, that is also okay. But we cannot have sprints of one sprint 10 days, another sprint 15 days, another sprint 30 days. That will impact the velocity calculations. So that is not advisable. Kanban board, it is a visual workflow management tool that uses columns and cards to represent work states, expose bottlenecks, and limit work in progress. A minimum Kanban board can have to be done, being done, done, and we can customize it based on the process stages or steps. A lead time, the total time elapsed from the moment a requirement or a work request is initially created to its final delivery. A minimum viable product. This is a terminology we hear very frequently. The smallest releasable version of a product containing just enough features to satisfy early adopters and validate critical business hypotheses. We are talking about when we say minimum viable product, for example, if you are developing a mobile phone, the minimum viable product should have a facility to make calls. It should be able to receive calls. I should be able to send a message, receive a message, and I should be able to make UPI payments. Then, okay, it can be a good definition of a MVP or a minimum viable product for a mobile phone. And once that is achieved, we can test it rigorously for the market feasibility as well as technical feasibility before building additional features onto it. Pair programming, that is something recommended in Agile, especially extreme programming, where an Agile engineering practice where two developers work together at one station and one writing code while the other reviews and navigates. That means two persons will work on the same computer. That means when somebody is coding, other person is watching it. That means almost real time review happens. And after some time, they rotate the roles. So when one codes, the other reviews. That is pair programming. And sometimes we pair an experienced programmer with an inexperienced programmer so that the knowledge transfer or the grooming can be much better. Product owner, the role responsible for maximizing product value, defining vision, managing and prioritizing the product backlog. So in Scrum, we have only three roles. We have the product owner, we have the Scrum Master, and we have the development team. The product owner takes care of the product backlog, prioritization, etc. The Scrum Master ensures that the whole project happens according to Scrum. Scrum is implemented, and Scrum Master is responsible for removing the impediments faced by the team. And the development team is a self-organizing team which works on building the product. Release planning. When we start a product, first we define the roadmap. Then we decide how many releases we'll be making to the client. At the end of every sprint or iteration, we will not make a release to the client because they may not get value. Maybe a series of iterations will end up in a release, and a series of releases will end up in the final product. So this must be planned. Which feature will get into which sprint, and how many sprints will lead to that particular release. So that must be planned. We call it as release planning. Then retrospective is another agile ceremony. That means after completing an iteration or sprint, the team does gets into a retrospective meeting where they discuss where they retrospect on what all things they did right and what all things can be improved or rather must be improved. We call it as a retrospective meeting. Then Scrum Master or Agile Facilitator, as discussed earlier. In Scrum, we call that person as Scrum Master, and a common terminology could be Agile Facilitator. Is a servant leader who supports the team by facilitating ceremonies, clearing impediments, and coaching Agile practices. In Scrum, it is the Scrum Master's responsibility to ensure that the whole project follows Scrum. Servant leadership. In Scrum, the preferred or the advocated leadership style is servant leadership. It is not command and control. Servant leadership is all about first the leader serves the team. If the leader becomes a servant to the team, and then in that process, that person becomes a leader. So first you become a servant to the team. A leadership philosophy focused on empowering, supporting, and removing obstacles for the self-organizing team rather than directing from the top down. Then a spike is a brief time-boxed research or prototyping effort undertaken to reduce uncertainty, investigate a technical approach, or clarify a complex requirement. When we start a new product, the architecture is very new. We might not have tested it properly. So before really getting into the development of features, we create spikes to test the architecture itself. That means spike is a small feature which has elements of all the layers in the architecture. So if we create that spike, then We can do it very quickly because it is not feature intensive. At the same time, it cuts across all the layers of the architecture, and it can be used for scalability test, stress test, etc. So that before getting into the real development of the features, we can be 100% sure that this architecture is scalable and the performance will not deteriorate at peak loads, etc. So we create spikes to foolproof the architecture. A brief time-boxed research or prototyping effort undertaken to reduce uncertainty, investigate a technical approach, or clarify a complex requirement. Sprint or iteration is a specific term for a fixed duration iteration used in the Scrum framework to complete a targeted set of work. So, as discussed earlier, sprints cannot be more than 30 days. It is a time box of 10, 30, or less than 30 days. A series of sprints will end up in a release. A series of releases will end up in the product. Sprint backlog is the subset of the product backlog. Is a subset of the product backlog items selected for an upcoming sprint, along with the plan or plan for delivering them. So before starting a sprint, the product owner comes out with the recommended set of features, and we get into the sprint planning meeting. And the output of the sprint planning meeting is the finalized sprint backlog on which the team will work during the sprint. Sprint planning is another ceremony in Scrum. It's a collaborative session at the start of the sprint. Before the sprint, the product owner, Scrum Master, and the development team sits together and run this meeting to plan the next upcoming sprint. We call it a sprint planning meeting. Sprint review, that is a demo or the review of the sprint at the end of the iteration. We call it as a sprint review meeting. An end of iteration working session where the team demonstrates the increment to stakeholders to inspect results and gather feedback. Story point. This is a part of estimation in Agile. So we have user stories, and these user stories are given a weightage based on Fibonacci series, and that weightage we call it as a story point. So after estimation, each story gets a Fibonacci series number, and that is the story point of that particular story. Then swarming, a practice where multiple team members temporarily collaborate together on a single complex task or a bottleneck to complete it faster. It is more like a task force. It's a complex piece of work. A group of guys work on it as a task force with a very short time frame and finishes it off. That is swarming. Time boxing, setting a fixed maximum amount of time for an activity or iteration to keep teams focused and control scope creep. A sprint or iteration is a time boxed work. It is 30-day time box is a sprint. User story is a short, informal description of a requirement written from the perspective of end user, typically formatted as a administrator. I want to do this. As a student, I want to do this. As a teacher, I want to do this. Velocity is very important in Agile. It is nothing but the story points accomplished in the previous sprint we call as the velocity. That is the classical definition. Sometimes we hear the term planned velocity. So while planning the product roadmap or while planning the release, we may have multiple sprints and we may have an assumed velocity like every sprint will produce this many story point. We call it as a planned velocity. And at the end of the sprint, we calculate the story points completed. That is the actual velocity. And over a period of time, sometimes we calculate the average velocity as well. Then we have work in progress, that is WIP limit, constraints placed on the number of active items allowed in a workflow stage at any given time to avoid overloading the team and improve flow efficiency. So sometimes we say a programmer or a team member can maximum volunteer for 2 to 3 tasks, not more than that. That is a very healthy practice because otherwise they may volunteer for too many tasks. They will block it and others will not be able to work on it because somebody has already blocked it. So it is a good idea to set the work in progress limits. And this is the essence of Kanban board. Each stage in the Kanban, we will define the WIP limits so that we can control the flow, study the flow, and we can identify the bottlenecks and improve them. So we completed all the 34 agile terminologies used in project management body of knowledge, and I'm sure that this would have helped you as a checklist because these terminologies are scattered across the project management body of knowledge, and I'm sure that you will get questions around these things as well. So thank you very much for watching our video. Thank you.